Welcome to 365 TV, and thank you for joining us for this episode and for tuning in. Today we're talking to Adam White, 365 CTO, and the subject matter is securing corporate data with a remote workforce. Welcome to the show, Adam.
Thanks for having me again, Tyrone.
It's a pleasure. So my employees have antivirus. The corporate employees have antivirus. Is this enough to protect them at home?
Well, the security engineer at heart to me would say it's never enough, and I think that's a good response from a security engineer, but it's definitely a good start. Depending on what kind of antivirus you have, it will give you quite good visibility and control. It's a good start to seeing where your data is going possibly, and what's happening to it. If you're using some kind of advanced antivirus like advanced endpoint protection, you can start enforcing stricter controls or stricter visibility, and you can start interrupting with other things. So it's definitely a good start, but I would say, like any security, you would have to layer it on top of other security mechanisms, policies and procedures to kind of improve your security posture.
And I know the term EPP.
Yeah.
Is that used? Is that what you'd overlay to improve the antivirus? And what is EPP?
So I mean, EPP, endpoint protection, is kind of more of a revolution than an evolution of antivirus, and it takes more advanced security features and couples them into a single application, basically. So you can have application control, web filtering, patch management, your traditional AV, and these kinds of things also start working with a security fabric and start talking to other security products that you have possibly to allow you to have a faster mean time to detect, and more importantly, a mean time to respond. So an advanced endpoint protection would give you these kinds of features and visibility and a little bit more control. And in addition to that, I mean, the next evolution, I suppose, of that is EDR, which is endpoint detection and response, which kind of works with AV, but not really. And that starts looking at not just your viruses or data or traffic, but processes and what's happening on your PC, and talk to other devices about what's happening there, and they kind of correlate that information for you. So you have these different options, and they can all kind of be lumped together, although they're different a little bit on how they function. But that's kind of the gist of it. Okay.
A key element for any corporate, and it becomes even more of a priority now with the workforce dispersed with COVID, etc., depending on what's going on in our world right now, is the corporate data.
Yeah.
The flow of that data, and more importantly, where is that data going and who has access to it? So how do I control that? What do I do with that?
Well, I mean, it's quite a difficult thing to do, and I think initially you've got to decide what's important, and I think that's kind of the basis of any kind of security discussion is, what am I trying to secure? If you're trying to secure everything and your answer is I want to secure everything, you're going to kind of fall down a black hole. You're going to spend a lot of money. You're not going to get much done. So narrowing that down with data, you're kind of specific to say what data do I care about? And you should care about all data, but with GDPR and POPI and legislature, there's certain data that you probably care about more, and there's certain data that your company cares about more. So focus on what kind of data you care about, and then look at mechanisms to control that. With the remote workforce, most of your data is going to be out of the office, and if you're consuming cloud services, you've got another issue there. Where's your data residing in the cloud? So it's quite challenging on how you control this, but I think the first point, like I said, is identify and classify your data, and the second point is find a mechanism for visibility and control. And there's certain parts that you can use something like DLP, which can help you with that.
Sorry, and what does DLP stand for?
So DLP is your data leakage prevention, and those kinds of products can be expanded to the cloud, to your servers, to your desktops, to your remote endpoints, and kind of correlate together to make sure that your data is classified, you know who's accessing it, you know where it's going, and you have that kind of control and visibility of where it's going. Protecting your data, and it doesn't just revolve around data leakage or maybe where it's going. You can also want to protect it against, encryption for malicious activities or ransomware. So protecting your data is also protecting who has access to it, protecting it when it's in rest, protecting it when it's in motion, and protecting where it's going. So you need kind of a combination of products, people, and processes in order to do this.
Okay. Like with all security, there's always that paradigm between amount of security and the impact that has on actual productivity.
Without a doubt. So, I mean, there's that old internet joke where, how do I protect myself from the internet? Well, you unplug your PC, and that does the job, but it doesn't actually, help your company at all. And any security team is going to do their job and secure, and any business team is going to try to do the job and perform business functions. And you have to find that fine balance between how much control you want to exert without hampering your business, efficiencies and processes and your general company function. And the more you layer security and the more complex you make it, the harder it is for your end users to actually do their job. So you need to find that balance of what you want to secure instead of trying to secure everything. Make that part important, and even try and limit who has access to those kinds of things. And in that way, you can try and not disrupt productivity while still maintaining some kind of good security posture.
As the corporate, more and more of my remote workforce want to use non-corporate assets to connect to the corporate data.
Yeah.
The whole bring your own device paradigm. How do I, as the corporate, protect the corporate data, resources, network connectivity, access, etc., for the remote workforce?
Yeah. So, I mean, the BYOD thing came probably from, I would say, the iExplosion, the iPads, and all that kind of thing. And users wanted to start just using their own devices. And these kinds of things, the security industry responded by segregation or isolation. You can use your own device, but we'll give you a BYOD wireless, for example, and you can just get your internet access, which, again, solves the problem but doesn't help the business case. It also becomes difficult when your end users have their own devices, especially during these kinds of times where users are more likely to use their own devices at home and they're not protected by traditional mechanisms like your wireless and your corporate firewall and those kinds of things. How do you enforce your security on them? So you could take quite a hard stance and enforce all of your security products on those endpoints as well. But that's difficult, that's challenging. It's a personal device, and there's a licensing or commercial aspect that each one of these products costs money, and the more you put on endpoints, the more it's going to cost your business. So I think rather a better approach would be to try and enforce compliance requirements. So your company should have some kind of compliance policy where you would have to have certain variables met in order to access certain amounts of data. And these variables can be flexible depending on what data you're accessing. As a bare minimum, you might want to have an antivirus on the endpoint, you might want to have certain patch levels, you might want it to have come from a certain country, and regardless of whether it's your corporate AV or the endpoint has their own AV, they just need to comply to a certain standard. And in that way, you're ensuring security and you're still ensuring compliance without infringing on personal devices, without having to support personal devices or take on that cost of those licensing. And you can ramp that up as you start getting to more and more sensitive data. You might want to start making those policies a little bit stricter. You could also introduce certain mechanisms such as some companies have done secure access hosts where you can still use your own device, but you're using it to access another device, which is then secured via corporate policies to get your data. There's various mechanisms to it, and I think you kind of need to find a sweet spot that works for your business, both commercially and synergistically with your employees.
And always taking into account the balance between security and business productivity.
Absolutely.
Adam, great chatting to you. Great seeing you again.
Cool.
Love the insights, information you shared with us. Really appreciate it.
Cool. Thanks very much.
Great. Thank you guys for joining us. Really great having the show and presenting to you. Take care, look after yourselves, and cheers from 365 TV.